The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. Now here are your co-hosts, Marv R., Bruce H., and the Monty Man.
What's happening? Well, greetings all you lucky people. You're very fortunate because Marv is here and Bruce is here and I am here and we are all together. Sounds like a Beatles song. And welcome to Take 12 Radio, the great reality here. This is Open Forum Wednesday, the great reality. And that is taken from the Big Book, page 161, A Vision for You. It says, they knew they had a host of new friends. It seemed they had known these strangers always. They had seen miracles, and one was to come to them. They had visioned the great reality, their loving and all-powerful Creator. So for the person who sent the email last week that said, why the great reality? That's why. There you go. Okay, so, wow. I got to turn my mic down. All right. All righty. I don't know if you... I've only had one cup of coffee today. Let me turn my headphones. There we go. Okay. So before we get into this week's topic, which is the promises associated with steps 8 and 9, I wanted to... I was going to read some letters that I got, and I'm going to save that for next week. For those of you who have been... Thank you for your submissions, by the way. There's a banner at the very top of the page at take12radio.com that says, have you ever tried to make amends to somebody and it wasn't accepted and you would like nothing more than to have that relationship reconciled, but the other person just isn't going to budge? Tell us your story. And we've gotten some submissions, and I appreciate that. But I'm going to hold off on those until next week because the promises associated with 8 and 9. This is going to be a 2-week show, so we're going to be talking about those submissions next week. Thank you for those. If you haven't submitted your story, please do that. Go to take12radio.com and click on the banner at the very top of the page, and I'll tell you how to do that. Now, here's the thing: some of you have been submitting stories, but you haven't been clicking the submit button. You've just been clicking enter. You have to click the submit button at the bottom of the page. It says submit. There's directions to do that. Otherwise, I just get a blank page in my email. I don't get your story. I just get a blank page. So I hate to miss out on that. Also, please, we're continuing to raise funds for South Albany High School. They were victims of an arson a fire here a few weeks ago, and they're doing very well. But we would appreciate any help that you can give. Click on the Paint the Town red banner at take12radio.com. All right, so I don't know if you two heard about this or not. It's all the buzz right now. It came out of Coin TV Channel 6. It originated out of Amends, Georgia on WJBF. And this kind of leads into our topic. I got to read this to you, and I want to see what you guys think about this. A Columbia County mom responded to accusations that she hosted a sex party for her underage daughter and friends. And I'm not going to use her last name because I just think that's rude. The news did, but we're just going to call her. We're just going to call her Rachel, and I'm going to tell you the story here. Rachel, 35, of Amends, Georgia, is charged with 2 counts of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. She is also fighting allegations that she supplied teenagers with alcohol and marijuana at the party. Okay. Doesn't sound like an uncommon story, but let's read on. She is now telling her side of the story, which is all about telling the truth when it comes to Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the belief. Now, remember, this is the quote from the news media. This isn't necessarily my opinion, okay? This is the belief of the Fellowship of Men and Women who have had a drinking problem. Quote, "We believe in honesty," said Alcoholics Anonymous volunteer Scott B. So, when Rachel allegedly shared details of an incident at her home to her AA sponsor on April 10th, Scott B., who prefers to keep his last name private, said turning to the cops was crucial. Most likely, the sponsor will guide the sponsee to go ahead and take care of the issue, he said. The alleged incident is detailed in a Columbia County Sheriff's Office incident report. The AA sponsor claims that Rachel opened up during a sobriety conversation over coffee about why she lost custody of her 5 children, ages 4, 6, 8, 10, and 16, on Monday, April 6th. The report states that Rachel told the sponsor she was sober since the day she lost custody, but she is facing charges of contributing to the delinquency of a minor after allowing her 16-year-old daughter and friends to party at her Evans home with illegal substances and alcohol. Captain Steve Morris of the Columbia County Sheriff's Office told Channel 6 she was arrested for furnishing alcohol and marijuana to at least 2 16-year-olds. That was not just what the AA sponsor told us. Keep that in mind. But what was told to us by also corroborating witnesses that were also in the home. The report goes on to say that Rachel played naked twister in the living room, then had sex with an 18-year-old in the bathroom. The sponsor said the mom told her she brought her sex toys out and performed with them in front of the group. As the party continued, the incident report reads, Rachel fell asleep and woke up around 3:30 a.m. to find her daughter's 16-year-old boyfriend having sex with her. The age of consent in Georgia is 16, and the 2 allegations involved individuals that were at least 16 years of age, said Captain Morris. Rachel's attorney, Sean Hammond, released the following statement on behalf of Rachel. Rachel acknowledges that due to recent alcohol abuse, she engaged in several acts of inappropriate conduct. Although many of the allegations are exaggerated, she is extremely remorseful for what she allowed to occur in her presence and is obtaining professional and pastoral counseling to ensure this conduct is never repeated. Rachel intends to fully cooperate with the legal system to accept complete responsibility for her conduct and to fully atone for her actions. However, at no time did Rachel facilitate a party for underage minors, according to Rachel. Rachel has recommitted herself to her faith and family. To her faith and family. She is hopeful that her children and members of her faith and others will learn from her poor example as to just how easy it is for people to exercise such extremely poor judgment while intoxicated. In regards to the connection the case has with Alcoholics Anonymous, Rachel continues to participate in and strongly believes in the program. She truly regrets any negative media coverage that this matter may have had on the organization. As for why the AA sponsor went to police, Scott B. said the organization is bound by spiritual principles. We believe that that's how our higher power is expressing his will for us through our group conscience. Captain Morris said that this is an ongoing investigation. The sheriff's office is looking into additional allegations. Rachel was in jail but bonded out Monday on $3,200 bond. Rachel's lawyer added she is in counseling and continues to participate in AA.
I wish there was a pit of sand here right now.
Yeah.
Because I just kneel down and start writing. I'd be writing names. It's an example of Christ.
Okay, right.
When they brought the adulteress to him.
Right.
You know what? Every one of us has sordid and dark things in our past.
Yeah.
So, hey, this lady is no different than anybody else. Yeah, the stuff that went on, which kind of makes me sick, shouldn't have happened, but it did.
Mm-hmm.
She's forgiven. She's getting counseling. I have some thoughts about the sponsor.
That's what I'm wondering about.
Yes.
I'm actually more concerned about why the media has this thing
Right.
And what's the sponsor doing? And this Scott B, his response to the question, why did the sponsor tell the police, doesn't have anything to do with why the sponsor told the police. He said, the organization is bound by spiritual principles. We believe that's how our higher power is expressing his will for us through our good conscience. What's that got to do with why did the sponsor tell the police? I don't get it.
Yeah, right.
I can only think of one, and I don't know what the sponsor is really thinking. I agree with Marv. If we don't realize when we're sponsoring people that we've all got dark things in our past, and it seems to me that this woman is more of an adult at this point than your sponsor. Your sponsor.
Than her sponsor?
Yeah, she's been arrested. She's accepted responsibility. She seems to have a decent attitude about this whole thing. And this is a person that's done some horrific things. I'm wondering what's going on there. I don't think we have the whole story.
Well, and this is all we got from Coin News, but I got to tell you, there was something, and the reason I read this is because we're talking about amends in 8 and 9. And which we're going to be talking about here in a minute, the promises associated with that process. But this disturbed me greatly, and I thought I wanted to read this. I wanted to bring it without using her last name. I wanted to talk about this because something in my spirit, not because of what she did, but the whole participation of the sponsor and the police. Now, I understand. I get it. I'm a court mandated reporter because of what I do at our church. And if somebody comes into my office and they are currently abusing a minor, I am required by law to report that.
You bet.
But if somebody comes into my office and talks to me confidentially about something that I did 6 months ago, that's a whole nother issue, especially when they're in the process of making amends. And I don't know. I'm just a little. I'm very uncomfortable with this whole.
Except for the fact that she continues to go to AA and is getting counseling and stuff. Why did the news media even bring AA into it?
Why did the people in AA allow that to happen?
Yes. And the thing about it is with a lot, and this is a general statement, not specific, but a lot of the news media operate on half-truths, innuendos, and supposition.
Sure. Yeah.
And so they take something like that and make a big deal out of it. And we all know AA doesn't want that. They don't want to be involved.
Right.
With that kind of stuff.
Why did
we don't need that kind of publicity.
Why didn't Scott B say, I decline to respond? Where is he in this picture? I don't get it. He's not her sponsor.
Right.
He's not her sponsor.
No. Her sponsor is somebody else. Scott B is just a volunteer the media happened to talk to.
Oh, see, I don't see that. I don't understand.
Who's that guy? So okay, let's say, because we know that the law of the land trumps traditions, we have to obey the law. We know that. So let's say that the sponsor was 100% justified in going to the police. She may have been. We don't know the whole story, like you were saying, Bruce. But why are members of Alcoholics Anonymous not saying, I choose to decline statement?
No comment.
Yeah, no comment. Why aren't they doing that? And then excusing it by saying, well, we live by spiritual principles, so that's why we're talking to you, media. What?
And if he wasn't her sponsor, what is he even involved for?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
So that's a question that should be directed to him.
I don't get it.
And I'm hoping that she'll show me how this ties into our amends.
Well, she's making amends, according to her, according to this report. Like I said, we don't have the whole story. But it sounds like, I mean, she even apologized to Alcoholics Anonymous if my behavior brought you into any of this. I'm sorry.
I got you.
She's making amends. She's seeking pastoral counseling and professional counseling. She's still very active in her fellowship. She's moving forward. Sometimes our amends is going to require some real uncomfortable stuff, but we need to make it anyway. And she's doing that. But I think this is exploitation. That's why I refuse to use her last name. I had somebody I respect a lot say, "No, the news used her last name. Go ahead." I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I don't know. So listen, those of you who are listening, what's your take on this? Email me at take12radio@comcast.net. What should we do when the media approaches us and wants to know what our philosophies, opinions, and behaviors of Alcoholics Anonymous are? Should we say no comment? Or should we do what this guy did? And I'm kind of ticked off about it. Tell you that. I'm a little irritated. So maybe we need to go to something a little lighter here in just a second. All right, so we'll be right back with some news from Cecil and a little trivia. Don't go away. What makes the difference in recovery? How can one help a struggling person find his or her way to healing? Substance use and co-occurring mental health conditions provide a number of formidable obstacles that can keep individuals from living the healthy, happy lives that they deserve. What does it take to usher a person from the disease of addiction into long-term recovery? Introducing Foundations Recovery Network, where they believe in providing evidence-based, integrated treatment and patient-centered care. They treat the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. Because they treat both substance use and underlying mental health conditions, they are able to address the root causes of addiction and prepare individuals for a sustainable life in recovery. If you have questions about whether you or a loved one may need help, please call this number today, 877-714-1318. That's 877-714-1318. This may be the most important call you ever make.
Hi, this is Olivia Fox. And you know, on the internet, there are tons of special networking websites, but one stands apart for a very special reason. This one saves lives. It's MatchingDonors.com. MatchingDonors.com links organ donors with people in need of kidney and other transplants. Did you know in the U.S., 19 people die each day waiting for an organ transplant, and most of them for kidneys? If you've ever considered becoming a living organ donor, or if you're someone in need of an organ transplant, please visit MatchingDonors.com, home of the greatest gift of all, the gift of life. MatchingDonors.com.
All right.
Monty Man, do you know what just drives me up a wall in the 12-step support meetings?
I can only imagine, Cecil, what drives you up a wall?
Well, in so many meetings, someone will read what they refer to as the promises. And it just confuses folks because those are the 9th step promises, not the promises. If we are going to read the 9th step promises as if they were the promises of the entire program, we are doing people a grave injustice, don't you think?
Well, actually, Cecil, I absolutely agree with you, and we'll touch on that a little bit today. Because we're going to be talking about the promises associated with the 8th and 9th step. But Cecil, take a deep breath and relax.
Well, I certainly hope so, Monty Man, because it's just so confusing.
Okay, Cecil. Do you have Take 12 bumper music, Take 12 trivia bumper music for us today?
Well, yes, I do. And here we go.
All right.
Here's what's his name. Do you want to play trivia? Trivia.
Dun, 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 dun. Take 12 Trivia is brought to you by Freedom Interventions and Serenity Springs Recovery Center. Visit both websites at freedominterventions.com and serenityspringsrecovery.com. Da, 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 da. I just got to thinking, when I read that story, perhaps I was guilty of exploiting. I don't know. I got to thinking, how would I respond to that? If the Monty Man said, send me an email, I'd probably go, well, why did you talk about it? So maybe I dug myself a hole. We'll see. We'll just see. So let's have some fun. All right. Let's see how well you know your drugs.
Oh, God. You're going to lose me on this one.
Okay. Which of the following drugs is most often linked to incidents of date rape? Here's your choices. Alcohol, Rohypnol, or cocaine?
Alcohol.
Okay. What do you say, Marv?
Rohypnol.
Well, Bruce is correct. Actually, I thought it was Rohypnol too, because that's what you hear about in the news. Although the sleeping pill Rohypnol was labeled the date rape drug by the media in the mid-90s, since it could be slipped undetected into an unsuspecting woman's drink and cause full or partial amnesia, all the drugs listed, and perhaps all drugs, period, have been linked to date rape. Still, alcohol figures into more reports of date rape and sexual assault than any other drug. Yes, indeedy. All right, number 2. Which is most likely to trigger overdose with alcohol? Marijuana, cocaine, or barbiturates?
Barbiturates.
Whatever he said.
Whatever he said? Okay. Well, Bruce, you're right.
I thought you were going to play a Johnny Cash song there for a minute.
Bruce is correct. It is barbiturates. All right, number 3. Which drug causes the most proven birth defects? Alcohol, tobacco, or methamphetamine?
Wow. I have no clue on that, but I'll also say alcohol.
Okay. Mark?
Meth.
Bruce, you're right again. Boy, you're betting 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it is alcohol. And train whistles. Okay, and here is your bonus question. Hash oil is derived from hashish and is processed in an alcohol solution. True or false?
False.
I can't know.
Can't know? Well, Bruce, you're wrong on this one. It actually is processed in an alcohol solution. Yes, indeed. These are all according to the American Medical Association.
It really is, huh?
Yeah. Tripping, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the cannabis and the alcohol solution. There's usually no other drugs involved in the process of that. So there you go. Little drug education today.
See, I thought hash oil come from cooking bacon and eggs and then making hash.
Making hash.
You bet. That's good stuff too.
See, it's the innocent-minded. We need to follow his example. Why do we even know these answers? You know what I'm saying? Oh, Lord have mercy. All right, that wraps it up for Take 12 Trivia. All right. All right, we'll be right back with the promises associated with Step 8 and Step 9. Let's see how far we get with this thing. Don't go away.
Origins Recovery Centers provides integrated inpatient treatment for substance abuse and co-occurring disorders. At Origins, clients receive expert medical, clinical, and spiritual care individually designed for their needs. Our clients leave Origins with the foundation upon which they will build the rest of their lives. Call now to speak with an admissions specialist. Our toll-free number is 888-843-8935. That's 888-843-8935. Origins, delivering real solutions for real families.
Men, women, and their families experience tremendous pain and suffering due to the struggles they face from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. They need to find a safe place for peace and healing. Therapia Addiction Healing Center was born out of a deep desire to provide that safe and powerful healing environment. Therapia exists to help people recover from addictions by developing and maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with God, self, and others. To speak with an addiction specialist, call 1-855-652-4325. That's 1-855-652-4325. Or visit our website at www.therapia.net. Therapia Addiction Healing Center, restoring lives one step at a time.
All right, and welcome back. And let's unpack this thing a little bit. The promises associated with steps 8 and 9. I don't know that we'll get through all these this week. We'll try. Excuse me. All right. The first one, step 8. There's one promise in here. It's on page 76. It's also in the 12 and 12. It says, if that degree of humility could enable us to find the grace by which such a deadly obsession could be banished, here's the promise, then there must be hope of the same result respecting any other problem we could possibly have. That is a loaded statement. There's a lot to that, isn't there, Bruce?
There sure is.
There sure is. And so I'm going to share something with you guys, and Bruce and I talked about this prior to the show. So those of you who are not of the Christian faith, hang in there with us, okay? Because I need to share this. When I experienced the miracle of the relationship I have today with Christ, when that happened to me, something changed in me. And I was able to apply and implement things I learned, my walk with the Lord and so forth, in not just recovery, for lack of a better term, but in a ton of areas of my life. And my walk, although not perfect, looked different. It just did. It was a humbling experience, to say the least. I was one of those guys that there was an altar call, and I do not remember. I mean, I remember being moved in my spirit to a place that I can't even describe. But I don't remember getting out of my chair and going up to that altar and giving my life to Christ. All I know is I remember being at the altar and tears flowing down my face. But getting up from the chair and walking down it, I have no recollection of that. That's just me. And I've always believed that probably that's because I had little to do with that. That God drew me. Because I didn't want to do that. I remember actually going to church that Sunday and with an attitude. Because there was an evangelist. I'm not going to buy into this garbage. I was fighting all the way. But something happened to me that day. And so if I look at this, if that degree of humility could enable me to find the grace by which such a deadly obsession, the alcoholism, could be banished, then there must be hope of the same result respecting to any other problem that I possibly could have. And that is true. That is true. So we were talking about that. That's how that kind of applied in my conversion experience. Bruce, you want to elaborate on that a little bit and how that kind of lines up with the AA experience and working this thing?
Sure. If we've had that experience like what you're talking about, we want to share that with other people so that our life looks different. So if we can have that degree of humility, which we find, in the grace, that this obsession has been relieved, and we've experienced that, well, then we'd want that to carry on, and we would go out and hope we'd have the same results with other people. Now watch what it is. God removed the obsession.
Yes.
God has to be involved in this. We have to go out and do this. We have to perform this. But that should be a driving force for us to do that.
Yeah.
Instead of, let's get sober. Let's stay sober. That shouldn't be the reason we do this anymore. We should be doing it out of being relieved. And we hope that we get some relief by doing these other things, not just a selfish thing. You see what I mean?
Oh, so you're saying that we go out and we extend the hand that we talk about
because of what's
been done, not because we want to stay sober.
Yeah. I've tried to live out of the spiritual life for what Christ has done for me. And that's the same principle I think we're talking about here, because the obsession has been removed. Try to start to live out of that. If you've experienced that and you go out and you try to make your amends because of that, you'll have learned something about forgiveness because of what you've been forgiven for.
So isn't it kind of a bait and switch? Because we hear, well, if you will go out and do these things, if you will work with people, etc., you'll stay sober. But then we find out if we really investigate this, that staying sober is just a benefit of that. It's not the motivation for that.
Most
True?
people,
not only that, but it can be very disappointing, because if you're not operating from the premise of the third step,
there you go.
In this, you come to your own end at some point in time, because you don't have that spiritual part going on. If you're just operating off what the steps are saying and just kind of flippantly, I can do this, I can do that, and there's no real transformation in your spiritual life, you're going to come to your own end at some point in time, and you're going to see that this is not enough on its own.
Yeah, because you're going to be working on a very selfish and self-centered level.
Yeah. I have to do this so I can experience life on life's terms. I hear that all the time.
You're doing it, you're doing it for selfish reasons. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you haven't really opened that door. See, it's about trying to, some things should have taken place by this time.
The first words, then there must be hope.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what hope is there? What are you talking about? At least it's been my experience. Without God, I have nothing.
There is no hope.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say is,
right.
And everybody comes to their own end in their own unique situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't want to dismiss the promise either.
Right.
Absolutely.
But that is a promise is as a result of something. And if we're following the directions so far, it's a result of a relationship with our Creator. It's not a result of how well I do something, right?
Yeah, it's like it says in that step 5, walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe.
Yeah. So again, let's go right back down to it, because it is packed, solid. It says that what we're talking about here in the ninth step. He says, if you could find that, she says, the degree of humility could enable us to find grace by which a deadly obsession is moved. When grace is God's unmerited favor.
Right.
And so God's removed this obsession. So remember here, I'll read you something out of steps 8 and 9 that'll puts it pretty clear. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order, but this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Maximum service to God for what He's done, and to learn to put other people before ourselves, not be so selfish and self-centered. Now, you're cleaning up your side of the street, but when you're actually working this program, it's like Marv says, it's because you've done these other steps. And step 3, and you're trying to be of service to him and not service to yourself.
I don't hear anywhere in there it says the purpose of this is to maintain your sobriety.
That's right. Okay. Marv put it really well because he took it back to step 3.
Yeah.
You know, I'd go all the way back to step 1. If you realized that you were hopeless and now you're not hopeless anymore, that this power has done something for you that you could never do, well, then you would want to, your life would want to change. You know, and you'd have hope that this thing could be done, you know, and that you could make amends to people.
Something is going to look different.
Exactly. You said it well.
It's going to look different. You know, I when I screw up in things daily, whether it's an attitude or I say something I shouldn't, or whether it disturbs me. It didn't disturb me before. I said what I wanted to say, and if you didn't like it, tough. But it disturbs me today.
You know, one of the big...
That's part of the transformation.
Yeah.
It's like Bruce said on our last program that we had. Daggone it. My thought just went...
It just,
I did.
He got on a horse and rode off.
Yeah. God conscious.
Oh, God conscious,
When the commitment is made like you've made it, then that's there, and you're aware. You're more aware of what's going on. At least for me, I'm more aware, and it may take me a while to figure out, I screwed up, you know. But,
right.
But like you, I never used to think of stuff like that.
No.
I just keep on going, you know.
And here's what's disturbing. I know people that have experienced that change, that process, that psychic change we talk about in the book, that spiritual awakening, and now when they do certain things, it disturbs them, but they still don't change. Their behavior still isn't any different.
Yeah, we can be very selfish with our spirituality and the way we
turn your mic a little bit there, buddy.
The way we employ it,
right?
You know, it's things. I think it's something to be learned. You know, it's just not something that we do. We have to learn to live out of God's grace.
So before we move on, let me share something that I have observed for a long time on social media. There's a lot of inappropriate physical gestures made on social media. We have pictures of Mr. Rogers flipping people off. Of course, it's photoshopped. We have people flipping people off right and left, pictures and with funny slogans. One gentleman posted a picture of Jesus, and it said it was on Easter, and it said I got drunker than SHIT, and I woke up 3 days later in a cave. And I was like, really? You know, I mean, there's all sorts of just really disgusting things that are posted. This is nothing new. Before social media, people were putting posters on their walls like that. You know, I mean, and so I mentioned to somebody, because one of them showed up on my timeline on Facebook, and I just privately messaged them, and I said, I don't appreciate that. Please don't post those things on my Facebook. And they got all huffy about it. Well, I'm sorry you got offended, you know, and, you know, it was just, you know. So I posted a question out there. I said, do you enjoy, this is yes or no question, do you enjoy profanity or inappropriate gestures on social media? Do you enjoy that? Yes or no? I wasn't making a judgment. I was just asking a question. I got a lot of no's very quickly. No, I don't. But then every once in a while I'd get one, well, it's just a word. Well, that means yes, you do enjoy it. I mean, there's no in between. It's black or white. Either you do or you don't. And somebody said, oh, black and white, over and out. You know, they were saying, you're just being black and white. Well, it's just a survey. That's all. I'm just asking you. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer it. And some people stated, if one guy stated it, I feel sorry for people that don't allow themselves to use profanity to relieve their stress. I mean, what would we do if we couldn't do that? I mean, things like that. So what I saw in some of these statements were a people that don't seem to have any scruples when it comes to inappropriate behavior. Now, that's been going on since the dawn of time. We know that. But what is happening with the people that said, no, I don't enjoy that, versus the people that say, it's no big deal? Is it the way we're raised? Is it a spiritual awakening that we've had? What has been going on? And I'm telling you that I sit in these 12-step support meetings, and I hear people on a regular basis spouting out stuff that's inappropriate, disgusting, and just, belittling women. I mean, and they supposedly have had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. I don't think so. I don't get it unless there's just a whole bunch of people that haven't had an experience with our Creator like some of us have had. That doesn't make us better people. I mean, it doesn't make me any more loved than you. But what is it? I just, and so what I'm saying is, when you experience this relationship with God, something changes. If something isn't changing in the way you present yourself, something's wrong.
Well, what hope would you have to move forward? Going back to that, if you didn't have that, and there wasn't some change in your life, if you had nothing, no experience to draw on, except your old experiences.
Yeah.
See? And so I think the spiritual comes first, and then you have a physical. Like, let's look at one of the things that's happened to me is that I stopped the potty mouth. Because
did you stop it, or was it a change that took place in your life?
No, but some man. Well, it was because a man told me that he stopped hearing me because of my dirty mouth.
Oh, but what you were saying was right
me.
on, but he couldn't hear your message because of that.
He said, you have a good message, but you have a dirty mouth. So I asked God to help me clean it up.
And God did.
Well, I stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And I stopped, and one of the reasons that propelled me to do it was because I couldn't be heard, and I wanted to be heard.
You
see, I wanted to pass this thing along, and it was hampering that.
Yeah.
You see. And the other thing that took place for me, and I was able to draw it, to go right directly to the ninth step, is how they say economic security will leave us?
Right.
I'm not worried about my finances today.
Yeah.
I'm just not, and I don't have a lot of money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm in a pretty good position too. But I worried about that constantly.
Sure.
And as a young man growing up and didn't have enough money, and that's gone. I wonder why. I don't think it's just because I'm an older man today.
Marv, you look like you're deep in thought there, buddy.
Oh, I am.
Share, brother.
Well, I don't know that I'm ready to do that.
Okay.
Well, you know how I've kind of, on the last few programs, harped on progress,
right?
Not perfection.
Yeah.
Actually, what I was just thinking about was Moses. Okay. Now, if you read the Bible about the story of Moses, he grew up in Egypt, so he was getting all of their education, but at the same time, he kept his belief was in God, not a calf or a,
Right.
So, and the Bible says that he was educated in all the Egyptian ways. Okay, at 40 years old, he left Egypt. And at 80 years old, I believe it was, he got the burning bush experience.
Yeah.
So for 40 years, or if you want, go back to his birth, for 80 years, what was the progress being made that brought him to a point of being able to lead the
Israelites,
people out of Egypt? So then, as I look at these steps, and I think about Moses, I think about Abraham, I think about Paul. How many years was it before Paul was really effective in his ministry to the Gentiles? Oh, I think over 14, something like that.
Yeah. So
Okay, so my point is, we don't really know what goes on with these people that are doing the things that we've been talking about, and what their progress is. One thing I'm convinced, because I've seen it in person, is that people who come into AA and really stomp or beat on the table about being an atheist and I'm not going to go along with this and all this stuff, change. And I have one person in particular that the change is absolutely miraculous, astounding. He was a dyed-in-the-wool atheist in the program, and by God, he wasn't going to, go along with all this stuff, but he did. Okay, so what's my point of all this verbiage?
spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and we see this stuff like what you've seen on your Facebook and this news thing
Report,
with the lady, and my part of it, my opinion, is that God's working in their life.
I get that.
Whether,
Let me play devil's advocate for a minute, though. It says spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. I get the spiritual perfection side. I do. But it still says progress.
And that's what I'm trying to point out.
So if there's no progress,
but
maybe something's seriously
it took
wrong.
80 years for Moses to get to the point where he could serve God. So we don't know what that rate of progress is.
True. Yeah, I don't know that I can argue that. I really can't,
Yeah.
You know what I guess it is, and here's my very humanistic side, is I want the best for people.
Sure.
And I hate to see people. I hate to see people suffer needlessly in their own mire and yuck. You know what I'm saying?
They don't even know they're suffering, I don't think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Because the guy that said, old high school buddy of mine, I feel sorry for people that can't express themselves by using profanity and stuff to relieve stress. I think he really believes that. I don't think he's being mean. I think he really believes that.
I wish that we had our camera. Not that I want to be seen, but Marv is right about the progress, but it says spiritual progress.
Right.
And if we're not relying upon God, what are we relying upon? Self, usually.
Right.
Goes right back to relying upon self. So we got this core of our being that's selfish and self-centered. That's what we found out when we did this steps 1 through 7. We have this core. That's who we are.
Yeah.
And we've been operating now this selfish and self-centered core. That had everything to do with our beliefs. That had everything to do with our values. And that had everything to do with our conduct. And everybody wants us to go out here and change this conduct. See? And work on that. And what AA, I believe, is trying to teach us is that if we've had some sort of spiritual awakening, if we see our problem and we ask God into our lives, then we try to work out of this spiritual center. And we try to grow from that and have that have everything to do with our beliefs.
So
and
then the spiritual progress happens.
Then our values change, and then our conduct changes. That way we change from the inside out. Spiritual progress. But what we want to do is go back and rely upon ourselves. Remember, who's driving the bus, and then he's a co-pilot, and I keep taking it back, and all the things we hear. It's because it's a very difficult thing. And that's why we have these 12 steps to evaluate ourselves and see where we're at. And that's why we have sponsors. You see what I mean? For we can talk to them, and they can get us back centered. Me and Marv talk to one another all the time about these things, for we can bring each other back to our center, for we can live out of that instead of out of our circumstances.
Right.
You see?
Right.
So, I mean, it's really important to see what's going on here. And I believe that's what we're supposed to be learning to do is live out of that spiritual life and not this secular life. But we're carrying that with us.
So when I was hearing you talk about, Marv, about Moses and him being steeped in the Egyptian ways, I was thinking about, okay, so the way they talk, the inflection in their voice, maybe some of the slangs, maybe some of the inappropriate words that might come. I'm sure there was inappropriate words back then too. Even though he was following God, being steeped in that would almost naturally kind of carry on with him for a while and would fall off as a process of his relationship and growing with God.
Hey, God talked to him, and Moses didn't want to go.
Right. So he probably did and said some things that were a little less than spiritual in his process, right?
Yeah, he killed a guy.
He killed a guy.
Yeah, he killed a guy.
Before he left Egypt.
And he disobeyed. He struck a rock. He wasn't supposed to do that. I mean, so yeah, I get it. But I don't like it.
That's why I say for us to go out and really make a proper amends is this forgiveness thing. Because look all that God had forgiven Moses for. And then look at your own life and see all that he's forgiven
I know.
you for.
You're right.
And I think
You're
part of what I'm trying to say in everything is to give these people who are new the idea that don't give up.
Right.
These promises are real, but they are coming after the fact.
Right.
And just don't give up.
So if you've been used to saying the F word every other word, it may not fall off of you immediately. It may take a while. And it doesn't mean you're not growing, right?
Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly.
Well, I have a question. If we tell them don't give up, what are we telling them not to give up to? Waiting for the...
I think, to me, that's what this program's all about. The great reality. The reality is Christ.
Yeah.
And hopefully we are passing that on as we go, and that's why they don't give up.
Very well.
Yeah.
They may not understand, but don't let your misunderstanding get in the way. Hang in there.
We're almost out of time, and I suspected this would happen. This went really quick. We're going to address the 9th step promises next week, and a little bit about what Cecil was talking about. So I will say this: I am on the same page with Cecil. It drives me loony when people, that's my problem, not theirs, but when people read the promises in meetings without explaining these are the 9th step promises. That's fine. If you want to read promises, read some of the 3rd step promises, maybe. Read some of the 1st step promises. Whatever. Give them all a chance. Give them equal time. But when we read the 9th step promises as, will somebody please read the promises? Newcomers are going, wow, none of that stuff's coming true for me. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Well, these are as a result of the 9th step. It says if we are painstaking about this phase of our development. What phase? The amends phase. These things don't come true as a result of just walking in a room.
Yeah, it's a real. We don't do this just to stay sober, but the benefits that we receive from this, are just off the chart. The freedom that you get. I have that story about my sponsor that I'll share next week.
Okay.
About the amends I made with her.
Right.
And how that set me free.
One of the things that just occurred to me is I don't think when initially you walk into the rooms of AA, you realize it's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
So many times I've heard people with different periods of time under their belt, and they'll say, I earned this chair.
Oh, God, that drives me crazy too.
And one lady here, it's been a few months ago, I said, no, you did not earn that chair. That chair is a gift. AA is a gift. I believe it's divinely inspired.
Mm-hmm.
And she really got mad at me, But that's the whole thing. Everything that's been talked about and what you've done in the past with this program and everything, it's extending God's gift to people.
Amen. I hope so.
Anyway,
you can't add or take away.
I really appreciate it.
You can't add or take away from grace. It's no longer grace, and you can't add or take away from a gift. Right. It's a gift. It really is.
It's kind of like God. He is or he isn't. It's either a gift or it isn't a gift.
Mm-hmm.
There's no in between. Yeah. Well, good stuff, guys. Folks, don't forget, email me. I'm sure I'll get some comments on this show. This is a lot of fun, and you don't have to agree with us to comment. Comment anyway. We'll put you in your place, right? No, I'm just kidding. Listen, don't get offended, please. Don't get offended. Don't let what we say drive you crazy. We're in process too. We really are, and it doesn't matter how long you've been sober. It's about being restored to sanity, and sometimes we're just a little insane, just a little bit. So until our next broadcast, everyone, thank you, Marv. Thank you, Bruce. And we'll see you guys next week with the promises associated with Step 9 and Cecil's little whining and the Monty Man's little whining about the promises when we talk to you next week. Until next time, this is the gang. We're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.